The following video podcast is a presentation of Dr. Dan's Freedom Forum.
But so you see it in the ratifying conventions, but also, as you say, it's implied in the fact that the United States is a group of states. Show me one shred of evidence that the United States government existed before the states did. Of course, how could it? How could the marriage of the bride and groom exist before the bride and groom themselves existed? Right. So obviously the states come first. If they come first, and they're the sovereigns, they're still the sovereigns. That's the way sovereignty is. They still hold that power. There is no sovereignty if the federal government is able to impose on the states measures that we all know are unconstitutional and the states can't resist, then they're not sovereign. This is an absolutely necessary ingredient of sovereignty. So if you're going to talk to especially, let's say, conservatives who might be inclined to believe in state sovereignty, you can talk all you want to about state sovereignty. But if sovereignty means you have the ability to make the final determination, then you're just blowing smoke if you say you believe in state sovereignty but not nullification. That's what nullification is, the exercise of sovereignty in its highest form.
Just say no.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And you know what? Sometimes people say, but aren't you afraid they'll nullify too many things? Okay, no, I'm not. But secondly,
I'm afraid they won't nullify
enough. And I mean, I guess I'll just have to miss out on all the wonderful benefits that are coming out of Washington, D.C. today.
There is talk in some quarters about an Article 5 Constitutional Convention.
Yeah.
What are you feeling about that?
I'm kind of in the middle on that, to be honest with you. I used to be 100% against it because my view was twofold. One, if they don't obey the Constitution now, what makes you think they're going to obey the amendment? Because it would be an amendments convention. What makes you think they're going to obey your amendments? And then the second thing was, I'm afraid of what will come out of it, right? I mean, we'll get some communist manifesto or something coming out of it. Who knows, right?
It's entirely possible.
Then,
given the media the way it is today.
Yeah, that's true.
And the lack of intelligence in general of the population.
Right, which is why I think what's more likely is that if you did get it, you would be more disappointed than horrified in the results. I think it would be more of it would wind up being a non-event. So my thinking now is, first of all, yeah, if your amendments convention is just going to be amendments saying, okay, general welfare really means, they can get around that. They got around it originally, they'll get around that. But if it's a structural change, like if it says, if 2/3 of the states vote that a law is unconstitutional, it's automatically repealed. Well, that's a structural change that they can't ignore. That's sitting there, right? That would be a step forward. I would support if that amendment got passed. Now, that doesn't have to be passed through an Article 5 convention. You could pass it the more customary way. So I think that would be beneficial. But the other thing is, well, what is it that I would be afraid of coming out of an amendments convention? Would I be afraid that we would suddenly now get a constitution where the Congress can legislate on anything it wants, and the president can just commit troops anywhere in the world he wants, and the Supreme Court could just run roughshod everything? Well, you know what? We already have that. Why would I be afraid of that? That's the world we already have. So that's why I'm not so sure there's so much to be afraid of. Anything you're afraid of, we're already there. So that's why I'm not as worried about it as I used to be.
I don't really share your lack of concern.
Well, I mean, it's less concern. It's less concern than I used to have, just because I feel like things are so bad now.
Well, we have definitely departed enormously from the Constitution, and it's been a willful departure by a federal government that is absolutely bent on amassing power, and they've done it in the most underhanded ways. They've made people dependent upon the government.
Yeah.
They've divided the country. They really have created a situation in which it's hard for them to lose.
Well, this is why I think it's so naive for people to look at some government program and say, what a failure this government program is. Look, all it's resulted in is dependency or this or that. yeah, that means it's a success for them.
Right.
If it's a success because it increases their power, their influence, it saps the independence of the general public. This is what ever since Bismarck began the welfare state in Germany, that's the point. That's not some unfortunate after effect, if only we could tweak the program some way. That's the point. That's why they do it.
You know, the credo of Dr. Dan's Freedom Forum is the right to own private property that cannot be arbitrarily confiscated by the government is the moral and constitutional basis for individual freedom. Isn't that really what the
I can sign on for that.
You
yeah.
can sign on?
Yeah.
Isn't that really what the Constitution is about? Protecting your right. Your sovereign right is your right to own your land, your home, your possessions, the works of your hand, the works of your brain, and your life itself.
Right. You're secure in those things from federal incursions. And then from the point of view of the state government, well, it's your responsibility as a citizen of that state to keep an eye on your state government too. But sure, I mean, I think it's important just to remember the point of any constitution, a point of a written constitution. People think that we have a written constitution so we'll know how long the president will serve or how long a senator's term is. But the British have all those things, and they don't have a written constitution. The only reason to have a written constitution is to limit the government, precisely as you said. That's it. You don't need it because there are countries without written constitutions where they know exactly how the government's going to be set up. They just do it. They just pursue the traditional way, and they just keep on with it. The Constitution is only there for the purpose of limiting government, and if it isn't serving that purpose, then it's redundant and nugatory and ridiculous.
A lot of people who are nullification deniers always cite the supremacy clause.
Yeah.
Why is that?
Okay, they cite it. You can find it in Article 6. They'll cite it because they think this is the home run argument against nullification. But right off the bat, even before knowing what the supremacy clause is, what's the likelihood that Jefferson and Madison were unaware of the supremacy clause, right? I mean, they're the architects of this whole idea. Well, the supremacy clause, if I may paraphrase it, basically says that this Constitution, plus laws that are made in pursuance of the Constitution, shall be the supreme law of the land, and any state law to the contrary notwithstanding. Well, nobody who favors nullification denies that principle. What we do deny is the law professor variant of the supremacy clause, which reads, this Constitution, plus laws which shall be made in pursuance thereof, plus any old laws we might want to impose.
Constitutional
or not, shall be the supreme law of the land. Obviously, it's not what it says. No one in his right mind would have ratified a document that said that. And then also we have testimonies, and I put these up. You can get the exact quotes at nullificationfaq.com in the Supremacy Clause section. I quote even Alexander Hamilton, who you would think would be inclined to favor a very, very rigorous, strong interpretation of the Supremacy Clause, and he said, the federal government is supreme, it's true. He says, but we have expressly included in there, this is right in the Federalist Papers, we've expressly included in there a limit to that supremacy. Namely, it is supreme only as far as its constitutional power authorizes, and it is not supreme beyond that point. That's what we're saying. So we're saying that to cite the Supremacy Clause begs the question. Citing the Supremacy Clause is saying to us, well, look, you can't nullify because a constitutional law is the supreme law of the land. Yeah, we know that. But this law is not constitutional, so therefore the Supremacy Clause is totally irrelevant, doesn't apply here. So now we've got to get into the merits of the question.
And in addition to that, you're still allowing a party to the compact, namely the Supreme Court, to determine constitutionality, which in itself is a flawed situation.
Exactly. Couldn't have said it better.
Well, listen, we better start nullifying a whole bunch of stuff right now.
All right, that'd be super.
Dr. Tom Woods, thank you very, very much for being on Freedom Forum Radio.
Dr. Dan, my pleasure.
Thank you.